We're joined now by David Burgerhoff. David is, of course, a candidate for Scranton School Board, and he is cross-filed on both the Republican and Democratic tickets. David, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for doing this.
All right, so we're going to jump right into the questions. And my first question, I always say the same thing, is about that which makes the world go round, and that's money. So the first question is, equitable funding from the state continues to be an issue. Please share your knowledge of the issue and describe how you can impact this as a school director.
Okay, I mean, I understand that obviously it always seems to be the #1 issue when it comes to government. So, I mean, there's no surprise there that would be the first question. I've looked into this issue as I ran as state rep. I ran as a state rep candidate, and I also looked into it regarding this position. And I'm not seeing a disparity that I heard in the Scranton School District as part of funding. I mean, we spend quite a bit here. We're right about at the national average. We might even be slightly above, or the state average, we might even be slightly above. Our state is certainly above. And the state, that's the problem on that point is, in Pennsylvania, we have a heavy local funding of our tax system for our schooling. And the state, obviously, we've been pushing to give more funding in order to reduce the burden locally and spread it out apparently over the state, which makes sense. And then obviously you would want to have equal funding, the same amount of opportunity and the money necessary to create those opportunities in each environment. I mean, every school district is different salaries, different locations, different regions. So we have to look at all these issues when we talk about funding. As a state rep candidate, actually, I was trying to look into some sort of school property elimination and find other ways to fund it. But it's like a $16 billion, perhaps even higher at this point, because I believe they just added another $2 billion to it. So it's a huge number, and I don't think people realize that. I think here in the Scranton School District, we spend about $18,000 per student. We actually do a better job with our private schools and our Catholic schools spending a little bit less money. The charter schools have come in with less money. And so a lot of times we're acting like funding is the only issue. In my opinion, funding is obviously the basis of what we do, but it's how we get the funding and how we spend that money when we get it. I really believe that we can spend less money per student, saving our taxpayers billions. And my concern, and why I say this, is because I see a projected 4% increase in taxation over the next 4 years with the recovery plan. If I had read it correctly, I only had a little bit of time to research it. It's like 50 pages, and there was a lot to do for this position. There's a lot more involved for school board than one might imagine, especially after being a state representative candidate. To come and look at this, I'm like, these problems are huge. So there's a lot to it.
Okay. The next question pertains to an equally important topic, and that one is safety. So what is the role that the school board plays in ensuring the safety of our children?
Well, I mean, I think it's definitely necessary, and I'm sure we do this now. I would hope we do. I can guarantee we do it. First of all, we do the training of the teachers and the students. We bring in professionals to basically deal with anything, active shooters, fires, any type of emergency. We have trains that run near our schools. Definitely should be an issue that hopefully we're discussing and looking into, especially with the knowledge we have now, the 1,000 to 1,500 trains to rail a year. And we're just seeing it in the news a lot more now, but it actually happens very commonly, 3 a day. So it's very likely to happen here at some point. And all the plans that we have, we should always reevaluate them probably every couple months. And if we see flaws or if we have an issue, as I hear rumors out there, but I'm going to state it as rumor, you all hear it, I don't have to prove these things. It's what I hear. I'm out there knocking on doors. I hear that guns are getting into our schools still. That would surprise a lot of parents, probably terrorize you. I hope it does. There's obviously a reevaluation of some of the systems that we're using in order to stop these guns from getting in our school. I'm not sure our disciplinary action is meeting the needs of the teachers when it comes to just the way children interact at school, the way that the students behave with the teachers. And when you have that lack of discipline, that lack of breakdown, that just total disrespect for authority, that a lot of times I'm hearing that these principals aren't really reinforcing and giving the backbone to the teachers, you're going to have a breakdown in safety. So safety isn't just, you know, everybody's focused on school shootings, but it's a lot bigger than that. We had obviously a student was killed just outside the Scranton High School. I've spent a couple days here and there sitting down at the Turkey Hill across from the Scranton High School because there was fights breaking out there, and I wanted to go down and observe and see if there was anything we could do as a community, plus try to learn what's going on with these students. And I would love to speak to them, but I'm not really in a position to do that. But I think on school board you have more access to parents and students. I would have a lot more than 2 meetings a month. Personally, I'm going to hold a couple meetings a month and hope that parents and students come out and they speak at my meetings. I'm not sure where this will happen or who will provide me the venue or platform, but we're willing to do that. At least I'm willing to do that. I know probably Mr. McAndrew and others on the board are certainly willing to do that. We need to put more time into solving the issues now before they become an issue that we have to resolve after it's a tragedy. And that's all I'm looking to do, is get my foot in the door to start somewhere and learn the programs so I can help improve the programs.
Okay. thank you. The next question is a two-part question. Closing a school is a hard decision to make. So the first part, what factors should be considered when you have to vote on a school closure? And the second part is what factors should not be considered when you're voting on a closure?
I'm not necessarily sure there's no factors that should be considered. Like they say, every idea is a good idea. It's just not necessarily every idea is going to make a difference. So you have to weigh and balance the issues that come before you. I believe one of the schools they were closed, I want to say, I don't want to say the school because I'm not positive which one it was, but it was something like $2 million in order to repair the school and keep it. And $2 million doesn't sound like a big amount of money to me when I know we spend $50 to $70 million to rebuild to build new schools. And you know, a lot of times the problems that we see with our schools in any government facility or government building is lack of maintenance. You see that constantly cited, lack of maintenance. So we need to be more proactive in preserving these buildings in the first place. We shouldn't be finding out that there's lead in our water, you know, years after we knew this was going on. Anybody in Scranton could tell you we don't have the best water system, and we should certainly be checking the schools for all kinds of hazards, water, airborne. I work in an HVAC type company. We clean ventilation systems. We go into schools. I know what ventilation systems look like, and so I have a rough idea what, you know, other things you could be exposed to simply through ventilation. Outside of that, you know, you have to take into account very specifically the neighborhood, the parents, the amount of students that are there, and what's the benefit of keeping that school open. I believe the one school they kept open a little over 500 kids. I'm not a guy to save buildings. I always save businesses, not buildings. But at the same point, schools are a little different to me because schools can be done on a community level. They were done. We had schools in every single neighborhood back in the day. Now, we're not going to go back that far. But we can have more facilities. We should have more options for our facilities. We should have cyber schools. We should have charter schools. You know, we should have a mix of everything, and we should encourage people to go to our Catholic schools or our private schools. And I like the idea of voucher systems to ensure that. I'm not trying to take away funding from the Scranton School District. I'm trying to provide options to our students. It's really hard when I hear people saying, "Oh, you're going to hurt the public school system." Well, the public school system isn't the only system we offer to our students, and we need to offer them every option, like everything else in politics. If we would stop focusing, thinking one answer is a solution, and do an all size fits all, not a one size fits all, but at all accommodations, consider everything that we possibly can do, take every aspect and put them all together, and you come up probably with the best solutions.
Okay. The next question, also two parts. Lots of questions come up about transportation, and by transportation, I'm only talking about getting kids to and from school. That's the whole point. So discuss any changes you believe are needed to the district's policies on transportation for students, and what factors need to be considered when voting for change.
I mean, obviously, we had the whole busing contract issue, so hopefully anything that we do going forward doesn't get surrounded with some sort of skepticism or, as they would say, unfairness is how the judge stated it. It was an unfair process. We obviously, you don't necessarily need big school buses in the city of Scranton where you can have smaller schools, smaller buses or smaller transport type things, the vans, the cars, people, parents providing, you know, that we have parents that do it as well as, you know, busing. We have the public bus system, which none of these things I can actually answer to because I really don't know how difficult it is to get our students to school. What bothers me sometimes, it's just a pet peeve of mine, is I see a lot of parents like sitting in their driveway waiting for the bus to pull up. And then their kid gets out of their car, and then the bus takes the kid, takes them 15 minutes to school, and then at the end of the day, parents sitting there when they come back. I sometimes wonder why the parent couldn't just drive that student to school. Maybe that's just too easy of a solution for some of us, but maybe it's not that easy at all. I don't understand sometimes why we're just not getting our own students to school. But certainly, we want our kids at school, so any opportunities for transportation, we have to provide. And you know, even as something as simple as encouraging them to ride their own bikes to school. And we can't act like our neighborhoods are so dangerous that our kids can't ride their bikes. Because if we get that way, we send out a mentality to our students that isn't good. I mean, we have a homeless camp, a block and a half from the Scranton School District, Scranton High School. That's a shame. We have blighted houses near all our schools. If you look at the neighborhoods near most of our schools, they're horrible. So to think that you're gonna allow kids, parents see that and they're like, I don't want my kid walking to school. So we need more volunteers with parents who will stand at corners, make sure these kids are able to cross the street safely. We need more volunteers to drive the kids to school if that's an option. I believe it is, as long as you pass background checks. I see the buses and the little vans and everything. I'm not concerned with how the buses are fueled, to be honest. This move towards green energy, great, but let's focus more on getting the kids to school. We can figure out the cost of doing that, but let's come up with all the options again. You know, every option we have to get students to school, every option we can give them to get there. And I mean, there's really, it shouldn't be a complicated issue. We got to get the kids to school, and unless they're in the school, we can't teach them.
Okay. This next question, the general topic overall is about banning, and it's a two-part question. So the first part is what should go into a process or a decision if a call to ban books or critical race theory or anything is floated to the school board from any direction, wherever that might show up. So what should go into a process or a decision for that? And then the second part of that is, are these decisions up to the board?
I obviously, any issue like that brought up, and we hear it all the time, and we get a lot of misinformation, what's in the schools, what's in these programs, what they mean. Both sides do it, so we have to just realize that we need people there to get facts that are just going to be honest with us. One of the biggest reasons I'm getting involved in this race is because I hear all this misinformation, like the kitty litter thing in the schools and items like that. And I told people, I said, you sound kind of silly, and it makes your argument look silly, and we're being distracted from the actual problems with our school or the curricula and how we're going to correct these things and what the actual issues are that face our students. So there needs to definitely be addressing of every single issue that comes up as far as banning books. We need to take these books. I've seen school board meetings where some of these books are so inappropriate they can't play the verbiage on the news stations, on the radio. The school boards make the people shut it down. When something like that happens, it's a pretty quick decision for me. That book should be banned probably, and I don't mean banned as in society itself, but maybe removed from our schools, not give our kids access. So we wouldn't give them access to porn, you don't give them access to books like that. These are common sense things, so you have to approach it with common sense. But you have to have meetings, you have to be very serious about these meetings, and I like the idea of surveys. I think we should really get a lot more input from our students and a lot more input from our parents. And basically, we at the board need to evaluate those things. I think that is important for the board, and I think we have every right. It's like when I was running for state rep, people are like, well, what right do you have to, vote for this? Or what right do you have to make this decision? Well, you see, you elect me to do that. And that's what we're doing here. That's what gives me this right. And I'm not trying to say that I'm above or better than people. I'm saying you asked me to represent you, and you picked me because you know I'm going to represent you. And I can't represent you unless I'm willing to listen to you. So most importantly, we need to have lots of meetings. We can't, like I said, have bi-monthly meetings. If you bring up a book or something serious like critical race theory, which are very serious, divisive topics, we need to have very serious public meetings continually until we resolve these issues, and it's resolved well. It's not an agree to disagree. It's not a compromise. No. We debate, and we fight this out, and we do it in a great manner with civility, and we come up with the best solutions. That's the best way to do this. We just don't do it enough in politics, and I'm sick of excusing people because we're so far apart.
Okay. I have one more question for you.
Sure.
This one has a little bit of an intro, and then I'll ask the question, okay? Mm-hmm. Put these on so I can see. Per legislation that was passed in April 2022, the Pennsylvania Department of Education must integrate culturally relevant and sustaining education competencies into educator preparation, so teacher preparation, induction, and continuing professional development programs no later than the 2023-24 academic year. And there are 9 competencies, and I won't read all the names because they have really long names to them, but they're based on cultural lenses, differentiated opportunities, culturally relevant learning, and things like learning more about things like microaggressions. So that's the point of the legislation. So I have 2 questions. The first is, what impact do you think having this additional training will or does or will have on our teachers and our students? And then the other question that I have is, what role will the school board have to have in ensuring compliance with this Pennsylvania law?
Well, I mean, it's a law, so we obviously have to comply, so we have to make sure whatever programs we're instituting fall along the lines. What impact will it have? Well, obviously these are generalities we're talking about. I'd have to see the specific legislation, the specific things that they're calling for. There's no problem with diversifying our education. We certainly have a school that's super diverse. We're like in the top 20% in the state, I believe, in diversity. We're way up there. We might even be higher than that. So we have a very diverse school, so our curricula should be very diverse. And we should possibly have a lot more elective type courses where students can elect to do these things and provide those opportunities to them. And again, we might be able to have people come from the colleges and surrounding if it's allowed, and they could possibly run these courses. Or maybe they can even, I don't know what the specific rules are, but can we offer these things as possibly after school specials or after school clubs? Everything doesn't have to fall within the parameters or hours of schooling because we have limited time to do these things. One concern I had recently, I just saw that they're trying to go possibly or considering, and I don't want to say trying to go, to a 4-day school week. I don't think there's enough time to do that because you don't have to have a class 5 days a week. You can spread out classes. You can have maybe on Monday you have a specific class, and on Wednesday you have a different class in that same time slot. You eliminate a day, you eliminate the ability to really move a schedule around and have more exposure, more access to more opportunities. And so anything that expands the education, and most importantly, is that we introduce our children to every aspect of society, every possibility, anything like, okay, microaggression or any other maybe terms out there that we hear quite often that people are just automatically shut their brains off to. Maybe we got to explain these things a little better to our parents before we institute these programs. And again, this all we just don't give enough information to our parents, and maybe our parents aren't necessarily coming out to seek the information. It seems like we get aggravated about something, we come out, we speak about it, and then we go back home and we forget about it for a while until it comes up again, or there's a major event, a national issue. This is the biggest problem in this area, is we're so focused on national ideology or national issues, we totally forget that we're a local community. We all share the same background, we all share the same goals, we all share the same neighborhoods, that we need to work together here and forget about the national stuff for once.
Okay, David, that ends all of my questions for you, but you have 2 minutes now to address the voters, and you can share anything about your campaign or your platform or any topic that we have not yet covered. So the time is yours.
Okay, thank you. You know, it's odd that I'm running for Scranton School Board. Like I said, I had just run for state representative, and a lot of people might ask, well, why would you even run it? And I know people are going to make the assumption this is a stepping stone for me. Well, first of all, I'd have to win. But realistically, my thought always has been with government or anything else is, I feel I'm a problem solver, and as somebody who does house clean outs, I clean out hoarder houses, I reorganize large businesses, I've redone warehouses by myself. This is what I do. When you walk into a room and it's so big and so overwhelming and no one knows where to begin, I say start at the beginning and finish at the end. It's nothing to me. Nothing overwhelms me. I mean, I got a little bit, I have to admit, a little scared when I started looking at all the issues that face the Scranton School District, especially when you talk to parents and teachers. And I couldn't possibly even cover 1/10 of the issues that they were concerned about. But, you know, obviously student safety is number one. I did have it mentioned that we should bring back the preschool program that we removed. And apparently it was free and not cost us anything. So, you know, I'm not going to ask why that was removed, but it should be brought back from what I'm being told. We need to address the fact that we continue to get sued for special education issues and a lot of non-compliance issues. Whose fault is that? I'm assuming it falls on administration, and they need to resolve that. And as a board member, I'm going to make sure that we get these things done, because lawsuits are crippling this our school district and probably school districts across the United States. Oh, and also I had people say that they want to restore the previous middle school schedule, and people didn't like the 5th grade being moved up to the middle school area. They want it back at the elementary school. So these are issues that I'm looking into, and I want more people to discuss those with me. There's obviously a ton of other issues, as I said. I mean, already I'm warning people that I do see a 4% per year increase already figured in, and anytime we get people from the outside that help us balance our budgets here in Scranton, number one thing, like Pell. I can tell you, I don't even need Pell. You know what they're going to say? Number one, you need to raise taxes. That's all they ever say. You know, we have to find ways to cut. We have to find ways to be more efficient. We have over 10,000 students, I believe, or somewhere thereabout in our school district. If you can eliminate $2,000 per student, which might sound like a lot, maybe not, doesn't sound like a lot, you get into billions of dollars pretty quickly. So there are ways to make cuts. We just have to be wiser. We have to be more careful with the money, and we have to really be cognizant of what we're doing while we're out there.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This ends our time with David Burgerhoff. Again, David is a candidate for Scranton School Board, and he's cross-filed on the Democratic and the Republican tickets, so voters on either party will be able to cast their votes for him on May 16th. So thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you so much.